Well, hello, everyone. Welcome back to Revolutionary Health. I am your host, Stephanie Center. Can you believe it? We are in season 3. Oh, my word. I never would have imagined going this long on the podcast. I mean, I had an idea. I definitely had things that I needed to get off my chest and out into the world. And here we are 3 seasons later. So, um, I was really thoughtful about not that I'm not usually thoughtful, but I was really thoughtful about who I wanted to come on this show for this season and what we want to talk about, things that I think will help everyone kind of grow and expand their mindset. And so I thought it would be perfect to start this season off with a friend of mine. We went to occupational therapy school together, and she's off doing some cool things. Her name is Dr. Kari Burch. She is, just to give you a little bit of information about her, she is a courageous and curious professional. And I really love that she has this. You all know that I'm obsessed with curiosity and our right to be curious and ask questions. That's kind of why I'm here. So I love that she's got this in her title. She's a life coach with a background in occupational therapy who helps high achievers break free from perfectionism and self-sabotage by questioning societal programming and reconnecting to their purpose. See, I told you words are hard. To their purpose in life. If you don't know this about me, I'm pregnant and I cannot speak English right now. She is working specifically on her transformational parenting coach certification at this time, but she also coaches all types of clients with a variety of priorities. Kari loves helping her amazing clients change their lives, crush their goals, and build tons of confidence and self-compassion along the way. So please help me in giving a warm welcome to Kari.
Thank you so much, Steph. I'm so flattered and so excited to be here. And congrats on season 3.
Woo!
You are like rocking it and helping so many people.
Well, I really wanted to have you on the show because you and I had talked briefly. You kind of gave me a taste of what your coaching is like. And I fit this description perfectly. What is it? Break free from perfectionism, self-sabotage, all the things.
Yeah.
I feel like you could have written this specifically to me. That's really funny. And when we were talking, you helped me to identify some of my own barriers and my own like ways of thinking that I had never considered before. And it was really I think illuminating and helpful for me. And I know a lot of our listeners are go-getters. And so I would love for you to kind of talk about this idea. I think you call it opting out.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
Yeah.
tell us more. Tell us what that is and what that means.
Awesome. Yeah. So I kind of coined this term opting out, but there's lots of ways to describe this. But essentially, all of us are raised from the time we're really young to like take a lot of things for granted at face value for how we were raised. Different thoughts and ideas and societal norms and ways that we feel like we should be. And we like grow up internalizing these things. And a lot of times until you're an adult, you don't realize, oh, I was taught to be like this, but lots of people don't do that. Or you grow up and say, oh, it seems like everybody was raised in our generation to think this certain way, but maybe that's not objectively the only way to think about things. And so it's sort of questioning and just gaining awareness of how your brain was sort of programmed to perceive the world. And once you understand, okay, this is how I'm seeing the world, this is how I'm thinking, then you have power and choice to say, do I like this way of perceiving the world? Is this working for me? Is this serving me? Or would I like to try to think differently about things? And so opting out is like, okay, I understand this type of thinking or this idea, and that's really not working in my favor. So I'm going to opt out of that and kind of go my own way. So like, For example, I feel like you're a really big opter outer because our society is all about traditional medicine and like not questioning and taking doctors' advice for granted and all these things, but you are so curious and like, why exactly is this? Why exactly are these medical norms? Like, why exactly does this medical structure for treating XYZ exist? And like, is that the best way to address
Mhm.
the problem? So it's kind of like that is totally a version of what I would say is opting out. Um,
But you
and
take it a step further. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. You
go
take it
ahead.
a step further and because I think my biggest barrier is I'm a rule follower and I'm the person that um doesn't go against the grain. And so it's really hard for me to be myself
Mm,
because especially like in the climate we live in, it's like socially inappropriate to ask questions, the kinds of questions that I ask. And I
yeah.
feel like I'm stuck between this place of um, should I just not be allowed to have these questions? Or should it, if I do have these questions, what kind of reception will I get? And
Mm,
just being that when you have that Hermione Granger, I'm going to follow the rules and do all the things kind of personality, opting out is hard. And I feel like you did a really beautiful job of helping me through that, if that makes sense.
wow, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you also for referencing Hermione Granger because that's just cool. Yeah, yeah. That is the really, I think that's one of the, there's so many different layers, like you said, or like layers of opting out. One is like just idea wise examining, and then the next is like, how will it be perceived to others if I am like different or if I'm doing something that other people don't do? And that is scary as heck. Like, it's scary to feel like other people won't approve of you. And like biologically, it's scary because we are really programmed and like wired to connect with people. So it really literally like sometimes puts our brains in fight or flight when we're worried
Mm,
about what other people will think of us or whether what we're doing is like right or okay in quotes. Is it allowed? And I feel that very strongly because I spent probably the first like 20 years of my life terrified of what other people thought of me, terrified to where
mm,
I like didn't share what I thought about things. I just kind of went with what other people wanted, what other people said until at some point I just realized this is kind of killing me. And like I don't even know who I am because I've just been trying to be who I thought I was supposed to be for so long. And I just started, our favorite word, getting curious about like, what do I actually think about
mm,
things? Like, what do I actually want? Um, and so, and I think this is something that all of us, I'm sure that I have many more layers that I have not even yet thought to explore. But I think all of us have many things that we just don't question. And it's not through any fault of ours. Our brain can only focus on so many things at a time. So if you're focused on living your day to day life and working a job and taking care of a family or having a partnership or just whatever your life looks like, um, it takes a lot of cognitive energy to think about these things. So
mm,
it makes sense that you wouldn't think about them necessarily until something sparks your curiosity or um, hurts that you're like, why, what is this exactly that I'm doing here to myself? And do I want to keep doing it or not?
mm. It's a really good point. I feel like, just in my own reflection, I don't think anybody wakes up in the morning and says, "Oh, I want to have the opposing opinion," or "I want to be
Yeah, I'd like to
I want
stir
to
the
be
pot today.
yeah, I want to stir the pot today." Um and honestly, I worked as an OT in traditional medicine for a really really long time. And it wasn't until I got so sick and I felt like I wasn't getting better over a prolonged period of time that I was really like, okay, well, if I want my quality of life to be good again, I need to figure something else out because what I'm doing isn't working. And
Hmm.
and I would also say that like nobody's in functional medicine because traditional medicine worked for them. Like
Mm-hmm.
you kind of end up there because of your own hurt and your own personal experience. Traditional
Mm-hmm.
medicine's great for the people that it works for, but if you're not one of them, then yeah, you do feel kind of isolated and kind of, um, and I just think the timing is interesting too. So, but I really, you had me walk through some different like exercises. I don't know if that's the right word, different exercises to recognize thought patterns and
Mm.
then recognize if those thought patterns were helping or hurting progression of like life's work or progression of um, like feeling of I don't know if this is the right kind of terminology, but feeling I have a specific really good feeling when I feel like I'm in alignment with the things I'm supposed to be doing or the person I'm
Mm.
supposed to be. There's a specific feeling that comes with that. And when you stray from that feeling, when your actions or your thoughts stray from that, you kind of lose sight of who you are and who you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you can speak to that a little bit on in terms of maybe how you help people recognize those, because you blew my
Yeah,
mind. I had no idea that I was thinking the things that I was thinking. That was really enlightening.
that's so awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I think so. This is like a framework um, that is like well established in actual literature about like how thoughts work. There are neutral, objective circumstances or things that happen,
Mhm.
and how thought works is you perceive a circumstance in a certain way, and that forms words and emotions in your brain. And then we take action from those thoughts and emotions that further intensify them until it's all like happening automatically. And so this even all happens like in a fraction of a second. Like
Mm,
you don't even realize you're doing it. So like one example is what's like a hmm I could give so many examples. So one example is like if you're on a walk in the woods and like there's a stick laying in the path and you perceive it as a stick and you're like, "Oh, okay, I'm just going to lift my foot up a little higher to not trip over that." You
okay.
just continue on your way. But if there's a stick in the path and your brain has had some sort of like terrible experience with snakes or something, and you think it's a snake and like fear shoots through your body and you like jump backwards, like it was just a stick, okay? But you
Mm,
didn't perceive it that way. Um, and so basically, like all of how we're raised or like experiences we have shape how we perceive like neutral things.
mm,
So let's do like a personal example for me is when I got into life coaching in 2020, I realized like, okay, I paid for life coaching and I was like, oh my gosh, I love this. This changed my life more than like 5 years of therapy in 1 month. Like this was absolutely incredible because it helped me figure out how I was thinking about things. And I realized during the coaching, I was like, this is exactly what I want to do. Like, I want to do what you are doing for me. Um, and, but the reaction I had to that, like, when I say this now, I feel very empowered and excited. But at the time, I was freaking terrified
mm,
because to me, like, life coaching, like, that sounds so woo woo. And like, what even is life coaching? And like, also, I got my doctorate in occupational therapy. So I had all of this like societal and familiar programming of like, you choose your career and it should be something like respected and you should like stick to it and you should um, be academic and just all these things that like I internalized growing up and like from my professional path that like the idea of doing that made me feel fear
mm,
and like terrified, just like really bad. And I realized if I want to do this, I need to like tell people that I'm a life coach because otherwise, how will anyone know they can work with me? But that was horrible. And so I had to work very, very hard on figuring out what exactly is shaping my fear or like my thoughts about putting myself out there with this.
Mhm.
Um, and really work through the steps of like, okay, it's totally neutral that I want to do life coaching. Like that doesn't mean that means nothing about me. What am I making it mean about me? Like what story am I telling myself about what this means or what other people might be thinking and how is that making me feel? And and so that I realized that by working through those things, I stopped myself from like filtering and being afraid of who I would tell about this and what would they think until the more that I practice like identifying like, okay, I'm having this like visceral reaction because I'm scared. Why am I scared? Okay, I'm worried that so and so is gonna find out and think I'm crazy or like weird or all these things. And the more that you identify it and like put words to it, the more neutral it begins to feel. Like all our fears that we pretend aren't there or like hide away, um, just get bigger. So when you bring it out to the surface and you like address it and all these things, then it all just becomes clear. Like instead of like muddy, murky, scary water, you just like filter out the stuff and then you're like, okay, yeah, this is just like a beautiful pond actually. And I can do this. And so it's just doing that, but for like whatever it is that's bothering you. And so when I think about like originally opting out,
Mhm.
like my take on that is there are lots and lots of themes that people have very much in common in like Western society or like in the US where we are. Um, like societal frameworks that we follow that we think we're supposed to be. And so there are lots of common themes that everyone deals with, especially like perfectionism, worrying about what other people think,
Mhm.
feeling like women are supposed to be and act certain ways and like be nice and take care of other people's needs and not inconvenience people. Like just all these things that are super common. Um, that the more that I hear people talk and work with people, the more I'm like, okay, distinct theme. Okay, distinct theme. Everyone deals with this. And the more that you see it, the more it becomes clear and it's like filtering away the things. So I love helping people figure out what it is so they can name it and frame it and tame it. Just let's just frame it all. But it really does. It's empowering. Because how often have you, well, anyone listening, like felt something and like been afraid to talk about it or say anything about it because then it's real and then it just stays
Yeah.
there forever until it blows up versus if you just are willing to like take a real look at this and see what it is and then decide what you want to do. So I guess a lot of it too is that I love helping people make the decision about keep this framework in my life or diverge, and if so, then then what does that look like?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if I were to kind of zoom out on the bigger picture, how would you like for those listening who are like, yeah, life coaching sounds great, but it's a little nebulous of a term for me. How would you just like define what life coaching is and how that can really impact people's quality of life?
Yeah. Mm. I feel like there's so many ways to explain it, and like life coaches talk all the time about like how do we define this, but there's so many different kinds, there's so many different
Mm.
specialties. Um, but I would say that what what it looks like to work with someone who's committed to understanding like what you think and how you feel and what you really want, and like I don't tell people what to do. I'm helping them figure out what they want to do. So I guess how I would describe it is like your personal guide to your mind of identifying like where where is your you are here sticker on the map of your mind in the scope of your life, and then where is it that you want to be, and like how do we define, okay, here's where you are and then here's how you get there. And
Yeah.
and I travel alongside you and support you in figuring that out. And what it looks like is, okay, let's talk about this concept in your life, like what you're looking for. What are some themes that could be here, and what are the ways you're thinking about it, and how is it making you feel, and how is that determining what you're doing? and what could we tweak? Like, what habits can we tweak? What mindsets can we tweak? And what other supports do you need?
Mm. Yeah, I love that. I'm trying to reflect on our time that we had together. I think you helped me identify mindset problems around money,
Mm,
around um and I've worked with somebody in the past just briefly on this concept of looking at money as an energy exchange and not as like a scarce. I feel like I grew up,
mm,
and this is a no fault to my parents or anything, but like grew up with this mindset of money is scarce, even though I had everything I wanted as a child. I
mhm,
was never in that situation where we didn't have food on the table or anything like that. But um, that really hinders if you own your own business and you have this scarcity mindset. That's going to hurt you, and then it's going to hurt the people you serve because you're not going to be able to show up for them the way you need to. So it's just really
mhm,
interesting. I remember that coming up. Um,
mhm,
it's like, and that's not something that I would have thought to go to a life coach for, which is why I'm bringing it up, because
mhm.
it really is. It kind of, I mean, we say this in OT, right? Like we meet you where you are.
Yeah.
Right? So you basically,
Mhm.
you like to pick careers are really hard to define because nobody knows what an occupational therapist
Right?
is.
Yeah, I like the nebulous and the murky.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, totally. I love that example because that's another just um insidious and totally like undetected sometimes
Yeah.
way that we all think um in our society about money is like more is better, and the way we think about like the dollar amount is absolutely subjective, but like none of us realize that. Like it's just so sneaky.
Yeah.
And of course, if you're working on your own business, and like since I also have experienced this in my own business, it's like if you're really scared about like making enough money, your spotlight in your brain is on that and like not on other things.
Right.
And like everything becomes a matter of, am I going to make this money amount? And it just, for better or for worse, our brain can only focus on so many things at a time. So if you're focused on money and like that you feel like you have enough money, then that's what you're going to be focused on. But if you purposefully shine the spotlight on other things and practice thinking new thoughts and trusting that money is coming, then it totally makes it feel different.
Yeah.
And it's just like literally nothing can objectively change, but if you just practice little switches in your mindset, like everything can change. It's crazy. And it's something that I like just that example, but for other things, like I've gone through stretches where for whatever reason, I get like upset with something in my life and I feel like if I could just change this one thing, everything would be perfect.
Mm.
And like that's not right. That's not true. But like that's an easy one for money. If I just had more
Sure.
money, everything would be easy. But like objectively, that's not true because no matter how much money you have, it's just the next problem, and then it's just the
Right.
next problem.
Yeah.
Um, but working on my mindset, like nothing can change, and like I can feel totally different about my life, and I love that.
Yeah.
Like it's amazing because I just wonder how many people go through life like hunting for the golden ticket, and like it was there the whole time.
Yeah.
You just
Mm.
didn't see it because you're looking through these lenses that you don't know are on, like lenses about money scarcity or lenses about how you should look or how you should sound or like how you should parent or how um you should be in some way, and like you don't realize like you're already good enough or you already have everything you have now. And when you accept where you are able to then like spontaneously change and achieve everything you want. And it's just insane. Like it's amazing. Um and so I think that's the matter of being willing to look where you don't want to look is sometimes the best place. I think I might be frozen.
Oh, yep. We can still hear you though. Hmm. Carrie, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good. Sorry. My internet connection said it was not going to be happy.
Oh, no
Sorry
worries.
about that.
We've got you back.
Good.
Um, I love that imagery of looking in the places where you don't want to look,
Mm-hmm.
because that's usually like for me, if I read an Enneagram result, or if I get feedback from somebody, if it's something that makes me mad, then I know it's probably true about myself. Right? Like
Yeah.
the Enneagram number that I read that I did not want to be, that I was, the result made me mad. I'm like, okay, well, there's probably truth to that then if I'm getting defensive about this.
Yeah.
Or even like in other things like practicing like meditation or something. It's the days that I don't want to do it that I probably need it the most.
Yeah.
So I love that concept of like, you know, having a safe place to explore those areas that you want to run away from.
Yes.
Love that.
Absolutely. I like that. Like brave
Mm.
space to take a little look, see what's going on, and it's worth it.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and like I also feel like you have a real true gift for making people feel at home and welcome. Like I
Mm-hmm.
I have no fears about sharing any unpopular thoughts or opinions I might have with you, because I know that you're not like going, whoa, she's crazy. Like, who asks that? She's crazy. Like you really do a good job of creating that safe space to have conversations, to ask. And I'm just speaking broadly, like I don't share my, my insecurities with just anybody, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
not, you have to have that therapeutic and welcoming environment to get people to be vulnerable enough with you to share the things that they maybe don't want to talk about. I don't want to talk about the things about myself that I don't like, or the things
Mm-hmm.
about myself that I feel like I'm being judged on. Like that is not something that I ever want to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
But there are also areas where when you explore them, you can experience freedom from them. I think
Mm,
that's what you do, is you offer people that relief or that freedom from those maybe toxic or harmful thoughts that lead to toxic or harmful behaviors.
mm. Thank you so much for that. I love that. And yeah, I think that's the beauty of like the coaching container is like it totally is a come as you are situation. Like there's
Mm.
no, and I have that clients tell me all the time, like I am just almost, I'm kind of mortified to even say this, and they'll say something, and like honestly, that also, I am like looking from the lens of, like everything's neutral, and like how I think about
Yeah.
it is also subjective. So like even if somebody brings me something that like on one level I may like disagree with, that that doesn't like matter at all. Like I'm not looking at you from my lens. Like I'm looking
Gotcha.
at you from like your lens, like your perspective. What's true to you? What makes you happy? What's all these things. So like truly, like I actually really like, even not that I disagree with you, but I love talking to people that I disagree with because it's like I just learned so much
I do
in
too.
general. And yeah, in coaching, everybody is welcome as they are. And like I've probably heard it all. Like I've probably heard it all. So
Yeah.
but I haven't. Like everyone is set like their own unique universe I've never been to. But like there's no judgment. That's the thing.
Mm.
It's replacing judgment with curiosity.
Yeah, I love that. We had a, was it a pastor once who, or oh gosh, I can't remember, a guest speaker to something once, who said, get curious, not furious. Like when somebody
Ooh.
disagrees with you, like
Yeah.
ask open-ended questions, and just like if we all had that mindset, like what a different world we'd live in if
Yeah.
we could get curious instead of like, I'm just going to see red and point my finger and, whatever.
Yeah, totally.
But anyways, you made me think of
Totally.
that.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think like part of this is so important to me because I feel like mental wellness and like comfort with yourself is such a big part of health.
Yeah.
And just like if you had a physical problem and you refuse to look at it, like just because you're refusing to look at it, it's still impacting you. But like it's the same with these intangible, like cognitive or emotional things too.
Hmm.
Like your wellness is so much more than just like your physical body and like what nutrition or chemicals you're exposed to. Like it's what you think about yourself and how you're thinking about yourself. Like I think that's huge. Like that is no matter how healthy your physical body is, it's still possible to hate it. Like no matter how healthy you are, it's still possible to feel like crap about yourself. And I think like life is just way too short to like not recognize how like unique and amazing each person is. And I think that's the whole point. Like when you work on your mind, you can enjoy the things that you have.
Hmm.
And that's like accepting yourself and being willing to like look in all those places is and being to look at willing to look at like why things are important to you, like why is your health important to you? That's like the stuff that matters. And so I think like this is if you're working on a health goal but not looking at your mind, that is like a very worthy thing to also look at.
Mhm. Absolutely. And I think that is probably one of the I would say one of the downfalls of the medical system we have is you have, 5 minutes, 6 minutes with your doctor, and they don't have time to ask you about what's your stress level like, or what are you dealing with, what's going on in your world, because you didn't get to this health condition on your own. You didn't get there. You maybe sometimes, yeah, if you
Yeah.
eat salmonella poisoned food, then yeah, that would be an example of that. But it's not a one size fits all, and
Yeah.
um, I know that's a really important piece to my own practice is what's going on in your world.
Yeah.
Tell me more about your life story, because if you give people space to talk, they can tell you what's wrong with them. They can tell you
Hmm.
how they got to where they are. You just need
Yeah.
to have that opportunity to be heard and validated. And
Yeah.
um, I wanted to ask you. So I have a lot of listeners who are young moms, and I
Ooh.
know you also you have a special heart for that community, and you do have some coaching around um,
Hmm.
parenting and that sort of
Hmm.
thing. Do you mind sharing about that a little bit, and kind of
Oh
maybe
yeah.
what you see and who you help?
Yeah, thank you. I love that. Yes, I am a new mom myself, and my daughter's name is Leah, and she just turned 10 months, and
Ah,
she is amazing. She is like incredible. And like to be honest, um I was prepared for parenthood to be hard, but I wasn't prepared for how hard it was going to be.
mm,
And I think there's like a pretty big culture in our society that like women are so strong and like everything that we do is so downplayed, but like being pregnant and like having a baby and being a new parent is so hard. And it's just sort of like taken for granted. But like for example, like everyone's journey is very different, but I had a really tough pregnancy. I had a tough delivery. I had really bad postpartum anxiety and depression, which is like pretty common. And um I had great support. I set up a support system around myself the best I could, and like it was still really, really hard. And I think unfortunately, like because it's just not acknowledged how hard it is, a lot of people feel like they're doing something wrong. So
mm,
like women are spending all their time Googling, what should I do about this? What should I do about that? Does doing this make me a bad parent? Does doing that make me a bad parent? Okay, I can't like hold it all together. What's the right decision for my baby for this? What's the right decision for that? And it's like isolating and makes you feel guilt and like terrible. And so, like, I really, really care about supporting parents because when you are also responsible for someone else in your life and not just yourself, it like changes everything even more.
yeah.
Um, and how you think about yourself, like it's very tender. It's very tender, like when you're pregnant and postpartum with a new baby. And so, yeah, so like for example, I'm getting certified in parenting coaching, but like it's not telling people how to parent. It is like identifying like your values as a parent and like developing your self-concept as a parent and figuring out like what are the values that I want to pass on to my kids? What are the things that I want them to feel for themselves? And like in doing that work, you realize that you want those things for yourself too. And like how do you also give those
Mm.
things to yourself too first? Like how can you like walk the talk um of what you want in parenting and turn it from like what should I be doing to like what's best for me and my kid and like my partner and all these things, and it's so empowering. It's like amazing. Um so I may have gone down a little tunnel. There's so many different things I can talk about with
No,
this.
I think it's so interesting that you talk about it in this way because a lot of the women that I end up serving are the ones who they're the moms that have kids that are, a little bit older, like maybe past the toddler age or so and on. And what happened in the time between when they had a baby and where they are now is they put their needs on the back burner. They were the
Yeah.
caregiver and they had all these great values for their child, but then they didn't take care of themselves. And
Mhm.
we have the constant conversation of, well, now it's your turn, mama. Now it's your turn to do this for you.
Yeah.
And you will be serving your family by taking care of yourself because you're going to
Oh
feel
yeah.
better. When you feel better, when you feel healthy, when you can digest food and go to the bathroom every day, when you can get
Yeah.
adequate sleep and get your energy back, like
Mhm.
others around you benefit from that. Because I think that going back to what you said at the very beginning, we have these ideas ingrained in our head that women have these traditional caregiver roles that they have to give. They have to do
Mhm.
the cooking and the cleaning, and they're working 40 hours a week, and they're taking care of the kids, and their house has to look Instagram ready all the time, just all of the things. And
Yeah.
they're just burned out.
Mhm.
And
And
so
you're worried
we,
about like what your family thinks of you or like if your
right?
mom's in your life, what's your mom think? And like, oh, it just is endless. Sorry. Yes.
Yeah. So
Agree.
I
Agree.
love that you are, it's almost like you're trying to nip that in the bud, right? Like
Preemptively. Yeah.
preemptively, yeah,
Yeah.
because like this is like I can tell you what hesitation without hesitation. This is what you can expect your life to look like in 5 years if you don't do something. And I know I have so many friends who are moms who feel guilty when they do things for themselves.
Yeah.
Um
Oh, I have so much to say about this. I think like the summary is like kids need parents who are so confident in themselves and well taken care of that they can like be completely present with how they are with their kids.
mm,
They need like well supported, well resourced parents who
yep.
aren't accidentally projecting their BS onto their kids. Like that's what kids need. That's what I think.
Yeah.
That's my opinion. And so in that way, like self-care, that's such a loaded term. Um, but like making sure your basic needs are met is like the very first foundational step.
Yeah.
And if you're not doing that, um, like don't feel bad. Like that's just actually how society teaches us to be.
Hmm.
But there are also other ways to be and parent that will probably bring you a lot more like fulfillment and happiness in your life.
Yeah,
And like I want to
absolutely.
help bring that to people. And I will say like I'm very aware of this. Like I know this and my postpartum journey was still hard.
Mm,
So I just think all the time about people who don't know that and just are trying to like make it day to day and how miserable they are, and it just breaks my
yeah.
soul open. Like I really care about women knowing that um their personhood is extremely valuable and like they are valuable, and that it's not about um it's really not even about like what I think or what other people think. It's about like what is going to make you
Mm.
feel happy with yourself and your choices. And often we need someone, especially in those like tender moments when the hormones are like literally crazy and all over the place, to like help you identify the lenses you're wearing and just like support you through it,
Yeah.
and just know that you're not alone. It's so important. Um, it's so important. And I think I learned this really great kind of hack from another coach that I follow on social media, and I just interviewed her for my podcast. But she taught me, she posted about how like when you're a woman in our society, and like being selfish is like such like a negative, like that is like has such a negative connotation. Like
Mm.
being selfish is like maybe the worst thing that you can be as a parent, for example, or like as a woman, because that goes against like all things we're supposed to be, of taking care of other people first. But she said the hack is just be selfish. Like when you're selfish, it probably means you think you're inconveniencing other people. And that probably means that that is actually the thing you need to be doing to take real care of yourself. And I've like practiced that over and over to the point that it feels so uncomfortable at first, but the more you embrace it, the better you feel.
Yeah.
And like strongly an advocate for like you could deprogram like all these different layers of like what you're okay with or not okay with or all these things. But if you just like hack to like what's the very most selfish thing you could do that you really like kind of would like to do if it didn't inconvenience anyone, like that's the thing that you should probably do. Yeah,
Interesting.
it's so good. Her name's Bryn Bammer, and she's fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, love it.
Yeah. Well, so before we wrap up, tell us, I'm so sorry I forgot to bring this up sooner. Tell us about your podcast and kind of what you, so if people are listening,
Oh
they're like,
yeah.
"Ooh, I want to hear more of Kari." How can they find you?
Oh yeah. My podcast is on wow, okay, so here's the thing about me. It's like I actively opt out of perfectionism. And so like my podcast is like not edited, like poor sound quality, but like I love to interview people who have opted out of things. Or
Yeah.
like I'll just talk about like things I've opted out of. I think I have like 9 episodes or something from the last year. But it's on Spotify for sure, called The Magic of Opting Out. And
Yeah.
so if you want to listen to some more interviews and examples of people who've opted out, like the thing that I want to offer is like it's really not about, I'm not like labeling things as like worthy to opt out of or not. Like it's more about like the process. Like
Yeah.
the thing is neutral, and like what I want to opt out of might be different than what you want to opt out of. It's about the process of figuring out what that is for you. Um so anyway, yeah. So
Love that.
I can send you over the link for that too.
Awesome. Yes. Well,
Yeah.
I have, since meeting you, I have opted out of this mindset that I need to release an episode every other week.
Yay.
And so what I do, and I think I'm better for it because I'm not, and then this is at no I mean this in no harm to previous guests that I've had on the show. I love everybody I've had, but when you have this, and I was taught this by a business, like different business coaching programs. I've done a couple of them. And it was like, okay, if you're doing the podcast, you need to have an episode twice a week, and it needs to be da 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 if you want to get your name out there, get shown, so people don't forget about you.
Mm,
And I kind of that never sat well with me. And I was always like, well, I want to be unforgettable regardless of when my episodes come out. And I've never done this, but I said, I don't ever want to be somebody that interviews someone just to have something on the roster, just to have something up and coming. And that's kind of why for season 3 I took a little break, because my business blew up and got really busy, and I just didn't have time to really be thoughtful about who I wanted, like what I wanted the season to look like. I really wanted to sit down and be like, okay, is it better to just have all really good episodes, or is it better to release something every other week? And I think the answer for me is I want people to know, like, when I've got an episode out, ooh, it's going to be good.
Love
Gonna be
it.
good, and you'll want to listen to it regardless of, my consistency. I do show up consistently on social media. That's something I've made a commitment to doing. But as far as my podcast content, I don't know about you, but I have a bunch of different podcasts I subscribe to, and it's hard to keep up with everybody. So
Same.
I end up skipping episodes where I'm like, well, I don't, this title, I don't know. I can probably skip it. But there's one podcast out there that I follow that's the same way, that he releases an episode, maybe every month or every other month or something. And oh my gosh, I know when his episodes come out, like that's the first one I want to listen to because he doesn't mess around. He
I
just,
love it.
so anyways, that was a hard thing to opt out of because it's like I'm supposed to be the person that does this. And now that I'm having a child, I'm like, I'm going to be really stingy about my time and who I give it to. And I really just want, high quality people. So
I love it. Kudos to you. You're like prioritizing your energy. Yeah, I really think like a quick way to know if you're opting into something is if you use words like I should or I'm supposed to. Like,
mm,
oh, those are those are signs you're opting into something.
yeah, no
So,
kidding.
and that's fine. But it is an invitation to like, okay, let's put on our little detective hats and see if this is if you want to keep that or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I loved this conversation. I really hope if you're listening that Carrie's got you to kind of maybe think about those areas in your own life where you um, have the shoulds, or you have guilt or shame or any of those things. And,
Hmm.
so you can ask yourself, well, why do I feel this way? Is this because this is what society has taught me? Or is this because I really do feel this way? Or I don't know. I feel like you've really helped me to identify those kinds of things, and I'm better off for it. So yeah, if you're listening, I hope you were able to kind of glean um, different like tactics and tools and things you can ask yourself as you approach your day to day stuff.
Thank you so much, Steph. I really am so glad to have been here, and I'm just really grateful for your program and everything you share, um, because I definitely feel like it's made me feel more empowered in my health too. And
Oh,
so,
cool.
thank you.
Yeah. Is there anything you'd like to share before we wrap up? Anything I didn't ask you, or anything you want listeners to know about?
Hmm. Um, I think the biggest thing that I'm just thinking is if you can feel like you're already enough the way that you are, like you will uh be able to do so much more than if you feel like you're not enough and you've got to change to be enough. Like I think that's really, really big. And I think we don't hear that enough.
Hmm.
So, no, you're already enough the way
So
you are.
powerful words to end on. Well, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate you and your time and your wisdom. And listeners, if you want to get in touch with Carrie, I'll have her information in the show notes. You can find her on Instagram. She has coaching, and you can listen to her podcast.
Thank you so much, Steph.
Yeah.